Hello everybody, my name is Gamer86 and we're going to check out a video called Things Seen on Pearl Harbor, Hincom, and the Night Marchers. And this is from a channel, Wartime Stories. So let's check it out, shall we? In 3, 2, 1, go. I wouldn't be surprised that,
Out of all the places the
based off
military
of
can send you for
history,
a few years, the islands of Hawaii are hardly the least desirable, unless you just hate the sun, beautiful sandy beaches, and rainbows. Even if you have the absolute worst job, anyone who spent their years serving on a base like 29 Palms, Minot, Polk, Drum, and so on, they're gonna roll their eyes if they hear you complain about anything. Oh yeah, Hawaii must have been real tough, sure. Granted, I will always say that the jungles I had to spend days or even weeks at a time in during my field ops were downright awful. They are hot, wet, and an absolute death trap in the middle of the night. Hawaii is beautiful if you're standing on a beach, but we spent half our time crawling onto the beaches at 3 a.m. after finning several hundred meters through the water in full gear. Wet, sandy camis chafe your inner thighs real bad. And a waterlogged rucksack weighs a hell of a lot more, not to mention having to clean all that rust and mud constantly out of your rifles. We envy the guys who spent their time working in air-conditioned offices and said they loved going to the beach on the weekends. My recon platoon was honestly kind of sick of it by the time our training was over. Speaking of doing all this training at night, it's really no secret that nighttime is when the weird stuff starts happening. Hawaii, especially the island of Oahu, has long been a major hub for American military bases. As such, all manner of service personnel, Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, are always awake around the clock, whether in field training out in remote areas or sitting night watch in completely empty buildings. So, who better to be the witness to strange and terrifying things that go bump in the night when everyone else is asleep? Hawaii is often regarded as a dream vacation spot, but it is first and foremost an island with a bloody military history and no shortage of paranormal activity. Before it was occupied by the US military, the local natives were warring with each other, practicing their own rituals, dark magic, and supernatural whatnot. The brutal Japanese attacks on the island in 1941 left their own mark. If you pay close enough attention, you get the sense that something inherently sinister is hiding in the island's shadows. As told by those who experienced these things firsthand, this is the smoke pit. And these are just a few true stories that expose the darker side of Hawaii.
yeah, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised considering what the history of the Hawaiian Islands, especially with Oahu.
December 7th, 1941 stands as one of the darkest days in American history. The Japanese Empire, looking to expand their control in the Pacific and seeing the US Pacific Fleet as a threat to their ambitions, devised a plan. A surprise attack that would knock the Americans out of the war before they even had a chance to join it. In the first week of December, alongside coordinated strikes against US and British bases in the Philippines, Guam, Wake Island, and Hong Kong, a Japanese naval task force positioned itself just a few hundred miles off the coast of Hawaii. 6 Japanese aircraft carriers and dozens of support ships transporting 353 fighters, dive, and torpedo bombers. The planes took off just before sunup on the 7th, flying toward the island of Oahu. It was a beautiful Sunday morning. Church bells were ringing, some sailors were either sleeping in or nursing their hangovers, and then the planes started flying over. Most people thought it was just part of some kind of drill. It wasn't until the explosion started that they realized this was no exercise. The Japanese attack would last for an hour and a half. In that time, the damage they caused was devastating. All 8 of the battleships moored along Ford Island were badly damaged. After being struck by 9 consecutive torpedoes, the USS Oklahoma had completely capsized, trapping hundreds of sailors and Marines inside the hull. The USS Arizona had been sunk, with 1,177 of its crew being killed when the ship exploded. For days after the attack, frantic banging of trapped men could be heard from within the wrecks. The noises themselves traumatized the men hearing them on the outside, because they could only listen, unable to cut through the thick steel bottom and rescue them. The rest of the island hadn't been spared either. Hundreds more military personnel had been killed. Every major airfield had been hit, most of the aircraft being destroyed or severely damaged before their pilots could get them off the ground. The Americans, meanwhile, had only managed to shoot down 29 of the attacking Japanese aircraft. The American defeat was hard to stomach. 2,403 people had been killed, or would later die from starvation or suffocation inside the upturned ships. With such a massive and sudden loss of life, as with other battlegrounds, perhaps that is why, even till today, the island of Oahu, and no less Pearl Harbor, is no stranger to paranormal activity. Pearl Harbor remains an active naval base. Because of the brutal attacks in 1941, it has also become a well-known memorial site, receiving an average of 1.8 million visitors every year, and some of them experience more than they expected. Out of all the museums and historic World War II buildings on site, the USS Arizona Memorial is one that stands out. The battleship is sitting on the harbor floor, a corroded and metal husk of its former self visible just below the surface of the water. If you've seen it, maybe you have also contemplated the horrible reality that the remains of hundreds of its crew are still down there, trapped inside. Above the ship, the Navy has constructed a white concrete and steel structure which can be reached by a short ferry ride, allowing visitors to view the ship from above. In 2011, an Australian woman named Suzanne Devaney visited the Arizona Memorial along with her family. Taking in the solemn beauty of the monument, Susan began snapping photos of the interior as well as the sunken ship. Her visit to the memorial was an emotional and somewhat haunting experience by itself. But unbeknownst to her, Susan had captured something even more haunting on her camera. Looking through the photos she had taken earlier in the day, while sitting in her hotel room that evening, Susan suddenly grabbed her husband's attention. What they saw on her screen was one of the photos she had taken of the Arizona, and clearly visible in the brackish green water was a face. The distinct face of a man. It was uncanny. The face appeared young. The expression was what could only be described as a look of profound sadness and anguish. After sharing the photo with her family, it was then posted online before going viral. The photo then made headlines all over the world. As is the case with all things paranormal that are ever taken seriously by reputable media outlets, the photo received both approval and skepticism. Could the face have been one more instance of pareidolia? Of course, 1.8 million people snapping photos of the same location year after year. It's bound to happen. A ripple of water just forms in such a way, the light reflecting off of it at just the right moment. In a previous episode about strange things seen on submarines, one submariner said his sub was docked in Pearl Harbor. His chief came screaming up to their compartment, saying he'd just seen a man in an outdated naval uniform walk past him. He tried to question him, and then watched the man walk right through the hull of the ship. He may not have grabbed a photo of the man's face, but we could hardly say that his experience was pareidolia. Knowing the tragic history of the USS Arizona and the men who died banging on the hull from the inside, waiting for a rescue that would never come, the picture of the man's face in the water might as well be the most convincing proof of ghosts we will ever get, because the reality of how those men died is far more haunting to me than the idea of seeing one of their faces floating in the water 70 years later. Besides, this is hardly the only story about the island being haunted. Sergeant. Sergeant.
Jacobs.
What's going on?
Oh, that's right. You just checked in, didn't you?
What do you mean, Sergeant?
So, nobody's told you yet
About what?
that this kind of thing happens all the time.
The alarm's going off?
Yeah.
Shouldn't we be going inside and...
Nope. You can head back to your post.
Aren't we supposed to clear the building? That's standard protocol, isn't it?
Look, you can go in and clear the building if you want, but you'll get tired of it after the first week. Trust me.
Sorry, Sergeant. Am I missing something?
The alarms go off every night, usually around 0300 to 0330. Don't you get it?
Get what?
Boy, you are green, aren't you? Look, you see how the guards sit in that little shack outside the front door of the building? Now, why would they want to do that instead of sitting inside at the CQ desk in the lobby?
Is there something wrong with the building?
You're damn right there's something wrong with it. Strange noises, smells, you name it.
Sergeant, are you saying that the building is haunted?
Took you that long, didn't it?
Oh, okay. I get it. Prank the new guy, right, Sergeant? Yeah, very funny.
Do I look like I'm laughing?
But,
Look, you'll figure it out eventually. Have a good night.
yes, Sergeant. Have a good night. What the hell? This next account was shared by an Air Force veteran who was stationed at Hickam Air Force Base in the late 1990s. We don't have a name for him, so we'll call him Isaac. Hickam lies adjacent to the naval base at Pearl Harbor, and the two are considered joint bases. As a security specialist, Isaac's job largely revolved around patrolling the central headquarters building. The building itself, it seems, has a very dark history about it. This is one of two experiences that I had while stationed at Hickam Air Force Base as a security specialist on the island of Oahu, Hawaii, in the mid-90s. This incident would occur in 1997. The first day we were processed in, the other troops there started telling us new guys ghost stories. I thought they were just messing with us until I had been there for a little while. It took all of one shift to start verifying the most prevalent story told on the base. It involves the 12th Air Force Headquarters building being haunted by the war dead of Pearl Harbor. The Pacific Air Force's PACAF command is also located in this building, so it is a very important place that requires strict security. There are manned security posts on the premises, as well as state-of-the-art laser and camera systems blanketing the property. Anyway, a little historical background on the building. During the Japanese attacks on Pearl Harbor, the building was used as a hospital and temporary morgue.
Okay.
Over 1,000 dead servicemen were stored there until their remains could be dealt with properly. Many of them would die in the building while being treated.
Damn.
There was so much blood that the cleanup apparently required stringing hoses throughout the building and washing the floors with scrub brushes. Pretty gruesome. And for sure sets a good stage for some paranormal happenings. Well, the first night on shift, around 3 a.m., the motion alarms went nuts, and the SRT, Special Response Team, was called to respond. I was training with the base patrol that night, so we went that way and provided backup. Every guy there seemed more tense than they should be. Something strange then happened to me. Instead of the SRT going in the building and clearing it, they simply reset the alarm and documented the occurrence. Anyone who knows anything about military security knows this is extremely unusual and not protocol. When we returned to our patrol, I asked my FTO, my field training officer, why didn't we secure the building like we should have? This is what he told me. It happens every night, usually between 3 and 3:30. He also let me in on why there was a little shack outside the front door of the building instead of the guard being posted at the CQ desk in the lobby of HQ. Almost every airman that tried to work the post would refuse to stay in there because they would hear walking and talking, smell what was described as rotten meat or a slaughterhouse smell,
I can only
and the
imagine.
stairs in front of that location would squeak and vibrate violently on a regular basis. I was still thinking that this was them messing with me. It just seemed like it was a little too scripted. But, man, was I wrong. For the next 6 months I was
Wait, wait. I hear that a couple of times in stories, like hospital stories. And I think my aunt who worked at one of the hospitals, or my uncle, who was like a security guard there, he kind of like hear late night footsteps walking about, and even though that even though like they were aware of like a janitor nearby, but the area that they heard the footsteps would be not where the janitor was last seen, and then and so yeah, it would be stuff like this that I would hear sometimes.
there. This alarm thing would occur each and every night between 3 and 3:30, just like my sergeant warned me. I saw military dogs refuse to go into search. Every dog would whimper, growl, and try to hide behind their handler. Those of you who know that military working dogs don't refuse service. I also witnessed grown men choose to sit on a stool in a 4x4 foot shack instead of at a nice desk in a spacious air-conditioned lobby, night after night. I quickly became one of those guys in the
Real quick, another thing is like even um like if a building is like extremely stained with agony, it would probably just make a lot of echoes that left behind and such. Like if you ever been to like an actual haunted house, you'll know read about its history and such, and you kind of have this presence. Um, Same thing with like maybe artifacts, but only like if there's like extreme agony and such that tainted the object or the building.
shack too, because I experienced the walking, talking, and stares in about the first hour of my shift on that post. I tried sitting at the desk, and I didn't stay there long. Because my shift on the HQ post began at midnight, and by 0100 or so, my time of trying to stay at the CQ desk was over. I was pretty shaken. I never experienced the smells, but would experience the sounds on several occasions. Then at 3:17 a.m., the alarm went off. There was motion detected in the basement and on the third floor. There had been nobody there since 5 p.m. when the building had been secured for the evening. Peculiar thing, very seldom did anyone come back in the evening to work there, alone. I think I remember only about 2 times in my 6 months that anyone came back to work after 5 p.m. And if they did, they didn't stay long, in and out, so to speak. It was creepy, and I experienced these things on several occasions, but the alarm thing was every morning, without fail. These are my experiences at the HQ building on Hickam Air Force Base. It was an extremely unnerving place to work. The sheer death toll during the attacks on Pearl Harbor in 1941 are horrifying enough. Hundreds of recovered bodies would have needed a large amount of indoor space to hold them, and the process of identifying them and preparing them for burial must have taken an incredible effort. The dead would have been carried and stored in the buildings closest to the harbor, where the ships were destroyed. As with this airman's account, there does seem to be a common trend around Pearl Harbor installations that buildings or spaces used to house the bodies of the dead are now known to be very unnerving to spend time in. One Navy veteran, using the handle Rare Notice 7417, shared a similarly chilling account about his own building, which is now a commissary on Hickam and is only a short distance from the headquarters building previously mentioned.
My unit's building was supposedly haunted. In the aftermath of the Pearl Harbor attacks, the building was a commissary, a grocery store, and they kept bodies in the freezers. Those freezers ended up becoming storage for our cleaning supplies decades later. And it was weird going in there or staying the night on duty.
Another sailor with the handle Combat Wombat 23 shared something similar in a comment about the Naval Information Operations Quarterdeck building, which is another short distance from the HQ building and lies adjacent to the harbor.
I don't know if it is still the case, but the quarterdeck for NIOC Hawaii is haunted. Whole building was used as a morgue during Pearl Harbor. I had an overnight watch, and it's a SCIF, a sensitive compartmented information facility, so it's got big heavy doors and stuff. I was the only person in the secure area that night. Most of the lights were off, and I swear to God, the same door kept opening every time I walked through. And then there was the gym in the tiny-ass basement with low ceilings. Something was not right down there.
Pearl Harbor and Hickam are on the west side of the island. The island isn't very big. You could drive around it in a few hours, depending on traffic. But the naval and air base down near the harbor are hardly the only creepy places on the island. And the events of World War II are possibly not the darkest thing that has happened throughout its history. All right, let's get these targets reset.
Sir, did you see those people there?
Wait, you mean you saw them too?
Yes, sir. Why? I thought everyone was gone.
Yeah, but I thought... Okay, hold up. Range control, come in over. This is Lima 1. Interrogative, is anyone still on the range? Over.
Negative, Lima 1. All packs are accounted for. You should be the only team out there. Over.
Hey, did you guys also see those people?
The ones dressed in black, sprinting like hell across our lights? Yes, sir. Hard to miss them.
Hey, if you guys are up 4, we gotta get these targets reset.
Corporal,
Yes, sir.
there's no Op 4 out here. There's not supposed to be anybody out here.
Oh,
Whoever's here, this is a restricted area. We are conducting live fire drills. We need you to leave immediately. I don't know why you're even here. We will escort you out if needed, but you need to leave. Now. Hello?
There.
what the hell was that?
Did you guys see that?
Okay, Specialist Myers, take your guys and let's clear these buildings out. We don't have time for this nonsense. Whoever you are, darting around between the buildings, we will remove you if you do not leave. This is your last warning.
I wonder if it's like anything related to the stuff about the jungle, or if it's also a Pearl Harbor story.
When speaking about strange happenings on the island of Oahu, the deaths of American servicemen is not the only cited cause. The island, of course, has a history that long predates the adoption of Hawaii as the 50th state. A history of the indigenous people
somewhat.
that has both countless wars
If you
and
know it, you know.
paranormal legends. One of note is the Night Marchers.
Night Watchers. Okay.
The legend of the Night Marchers begins well before the American occupation of Hawaii. In their language, native Hawaiians would refer to themselves as Kanaka Maoli, or true people. This name distinguishes themselves from the Americans and other foreigners who have migrated to the island over the last century. Still today, tensions exist on the islands, especially Oahu, the same as they always have in other colonized nations. Native Hawaiians are descended from Polynesian peoples, those who migrated over from the Marquesas Islands between sometime around the 4th and 7th centuries. And over the following centuries, warfare was not uncommon in Hawaii. Tribes fought over territory and ruling power. Tribes from one island would frequently invade other nearby islands. Even something seemingly as slight as one tribe disrespecting the honor of another could provoke a bloody conflict. The heart of Hawaii's tribal societies were the chiefs. Unlike many modern political leaders, the chiefs of Hawaiian tribes were frontline warriors, which is probably why they were so respected and revered by their people. During times of peace, the chiefs maintained order over their lands. During times of war, they led their men into battle. And a warrior's fierce loyalty to his chief was so strong, in fact, that it didn't end with his death. According to Native Hawaiians, their devotion to the chief carried over into the afterlife. Legend has it that while the ancient tribes of the Hawaiian Islands are long dead, their spirits remain. Not only can they be seen, but they are often heard. These spirits are known throughout Hawaii as the Night Marchers. But if you thought these entities were something only talked about by the natives, you would be wrong. American soldiers, sailors, and Marines stationed on the island have been sharing stories about them for decades.
Okay, quick context
Sharing his
about
story
it.
online, a soldier using the handle Napoleon was right recounted a truly bizarre experience he had while stationed at Schofield Barracks. We were doing a live fire exercise on a set of buildings. After a company got done shooting the place up, I headed up there with a small group to reset the targets for the next company attack. As we approached in the LMTVs, I saw, in the headlights, numerous figures sprinting between the buildings. They were moving insanely fast, faster than anyone should be at full sprint. And it looked like each was holding a red chem light in their hands. I chalked it up to exhaustion and didn't think much more about it until one of my soldiers got out and said, "Sir, did you see those people there? I thought everyone was gone." That started the heebie-jeebies. I called down on the radio to confirm everyone was off the objective. Everyone was accounted for off the range. Then 4 more of my soldiers got out of the truck and said they saw the same thing. We called a hold on training and cleared the entire area. Never found anyone there. Hawaiian folklore has a lot of specific stories about them, and a lot of guys I know who were stationed in Hawaii saw them in different areas. All describe the same thing I saw. Hey, guys, is there some kind of luau going on or what?
If I
Guys.
woke up seeing that, I would be like, nope.
This next story was originally submitted to Nick Orton for publication in the Tales from the Grid Square Project. In it, an anonymous Marine recalls an encounter he had while stationed at Kaneohe Bay. I was stationed in K-Bay not long ago. This happened in 2021. It was a common thing for me and a group of my buddies to go camping on the North Shore, mostly to do some fishing overnight.
Like 4 years ago now.
We had just set up a little before Kaena Point in a spot we frequent often. Up until that point, I had heard the stories of the night marchers and the menehune of the island, and although superstitious myself, I never gave it much thought. The day carried on as usual, and with the night, we eventually started to go into our tents to sleep. At around 0200, I woke up to the sound of marching and drums off in the distance that were getting closer to our campsite. In my mind, I immediately knew what it was. Out of fear, I lay there in my tent, trying not to make a sound and hoping that they would just pass by.
Yeah, I think that would be for
Thankfully, the
best.
sounds eventually started to grow distant and were soon gone. When I woke up, I just chalked the whole thing up to being a weird dream. The next morning, I didn't mention anything to my friends and started to pack up. But just as we were finishing, an older Hawaiian woman, who I assume was also camping nearby, came over to us and started asking if we heard the marchers last night. Come to find out that where we had set up is a known path for the night marchers to be on. This final story was sent to me a few years back by an
A
HNS.
cemetery.
We never had to explain what HNS meant, but for the sake of anybody who's not military, a headquarters and service Marine. Honestly, I never even knew that. We just said HNS, and I never bothered to question it. But
Alrighty.
this final story was sent to me a few years back by an HNS Marine named Ruben. Both I and Ruben spent quite a few nights training on the southeastern end of the island of Oahu on an old decommissioned airbase called Bellows Air Station. We just called it Bellows.
I think I've heard that one.
I'm not sure when it was last in service, but when I was there between 2010 and 2015, it looked like it had been a while. All there were really just the runways and the mountain towns, the mock Afghani villages that they'd built there. There wasn't really anything else other than just these flat sort of gravel runways. So maybe it had been since World War II. The Japanese did apparently bomb the base during their attack. A couple of guys were killed there. The one saving grace of Bellows is that it's mostly flat. Unlike East Range or Kahuku, two other training areas up on the northern side of the island, training at Bellows meant our patrols didn't completely suck. No mountains to climb, no falling into ravines, etc. Worst thing that ever happened to me there was when I tried to take a nap one night and a centipede bit my head. Super painful.
Ouch.
Doc had to knock me out with Benadryl. But Ruben evidently encountered some things at Bellows that I am happy to say that I missed out on. One thing I didn't know about the base, as many times as I trained there, there's a cemetery there. Not sure if that matters, but Ruben might think so because of what he saw. I was an HNS guy with a Force Recon unit out of Kaneohe Bay, Hawaii. I know what you're thinking. Why are HNS guys going out on recon patrols? They should be pushing paper, right? Well, our ops chief recalled stories of HNS guys hopping on patrols with his team back in Iraq when they were short on bodies, which led him to incorporating us HNS Marines into a lot of the training the reconnaissance Marines were doing. This leads us to the field op in question. We did land navigation all day and went on reconnaissance patrols during the night. The first 2 nights, we had a team guy with us as a walker, mostly acting as an observer who gave us critiques during the after-action report. But this particular night, the teams were given full autonomy. No instructor shadowing us, just big boy rules. After spending the day doing our land nav, me, being the team's point man, worked with the TL, team leader, to plan that night's patrol route. Our objective was pretty simple. We get dumped at a random spot within the training area and have to conduct a patrol back to our bivouac site, all while avoiding vehicle patrols that were being conducted by recon Marines and the I&I staff. Our patrol route was submitted and accepted. We started prepping, going through our PPIs. We mounted up into blacked out vans and were driven by one of our SARCs, Special Amphibious Reconnaissance Corpsmen, to the drop point, where we quickly dismounted and established 360-degree security. In true Marine Corps tradition, as soon as I dropped to a knee to cover my sector, I tore a giant hole in the crotch of my camis. I should have known that this was going to set the tone for the rest of the night. The van rolled off, and I glanced at my TL, who gave the hand signal for us to rally up on his position in the tree line. Due to the dense brush in the jungles of Hawaii, we conducted our patrol in a ranger column, which is essentially walking single file with little dispersion. The first quarter of the patrol went well. It wasn't until we crossed one of the large runways that things started to get a little weird. To give some further context, the training area on Bellows Air Base has around 3 to 4 MOUT towns. MOUT stands for Military Operations Urban Terrain. A large X-shaped, what I used to believe was an airstrip, and a dense jungle. We had crossed the airstrip at the southwesternmost point where one of the smaller MOUT towns made of shipping containers was. Once we re-entered into the tree line though, my compass began to act weird. I tried looking around thinking we must have walked too close to some power lines or something, but I didn't see any. I thought my rifle could have been the cause, even though I held it at some distance and the previous nights I'd never had any issues with it. I probably looked pretty weird to my team, trying to stretch the compass as far away from me as possible while being able to keep an eye on the face of it. The lanyard rope is now, pulling against my collar. Eventually, the needle stopped swaying left and right, and I tried to reorient myself. After our pause rep, position report, was completed, I could have sworn, and I still swear to this day, that my TL tapped me on the shoulder and whispered, "Go." So I stepped off, following my azimuth. We could faintly hear the sounds of semis and cars on a main road less than a mile away. But by the time I had walked 30 feet back into the jungle, it was dead quiet. And that was when a weird, foreboding feeling washed over me, and I felt a tingle in my temples and around my scalp. I stopped and looked back, hoping to ask my TL if he felt something too, but no one was there. My team wasn't behind me. I was completely alone. What made it worse was that everything was so dark. There was barely any illumination from the moon, and what light there was wasn't able to penetrate the trees, rendering our NVGs, night vision goggles, essentially useless. So throughout the patrol, we were using our natural vision, and I was using the very dim little glow-in-the-dark tritium marker, the light on my compass, to navigate. So a wave of panic sets in as I now realize I had royally screwed up. I had stepped off without my team behind me. And at that moment, that's when I began to hear the voices. They were faint, like the background noise of women and kids talking and playing, mixed in with the occasional male voice. Some bushes began to rustle, so I pocketed my compass and lifted my rifle while slowly backing away. I didn't have any live ammunition, but I was willing to channel whatever warrior spirit I needed to punch the barrel of my weapon into whatever came out of that bush. Eventually, the movement stopped, And I took that moment to quickly turn tail and run back down in the direction I thought I came from. Luckily for me, I saw the pale glow of the moonlight reflecting off the runway that we had crossed from between the trees. I looked north and then south, only to see that I was significantly further north of the mountain town we had passed through. Now I thought I was losing it. There was no way that I covered 300 meters north after I'd stepped off. But in any case, I needed to find my team. So I'm moving in a slow jog while trying to muffle the sound of my steps. I pushed south toward the mountain town, and eventually I found my team, still set up in 360-degree security, and they all turned to face me as I walk up to them. Like any good leader would, my TL then grabs me, pulls me close, and whispered, in an ass-chewing voice, and asked me, "What the hell were you doing? Where did you go?" And I told him about how he had tapped me and told me to go, and he claimed he never did such a thing. He told me that as he was writing down further instructions from the ROC, the Recon Operations Center, that I just got up and walked into the jungle. I think he saw the confusion in my eyes because he just let me go and told me to get my head in the game. We formed up and stepped off together. We came across the same area of jungle that I was in before, still dead quiet. But thankfully, I could hear the steps of my team now behind me, so this time it made me stay focused and not think about what happened before. There were no voices this time, or rustling bushes. Our route led us along the brush to a bridge, the only land crossing in the area. Since the stream itself was out, we'd been warned some guys got a flesh-eating bacteria while crossing the stream, so we said we're not doing that. About 300 meters from the stream, we hit a small trail and ran face first into a massive black building that was directly on my azimuth. I tried to go around it on the right, but the building was still in front of us, so we turned around and tried to go left, but the building was also there. The building was apparently crescent-shaped with a rounded roof, like a small hangar or bunker, and it had a crescent-shaped road out in front of it. I have looked for this building on the Google Maps imagery, and for the strangest reason, I can't see it. So I don't know if it's just, it was an open air when I saw it, so I don't know if it's been overgrown since then or what, but whatever this building was, we couldn't get around it. So my team leader and I did a map check under our camo tarp using a red light and confirmed our position using a nearby T intersection. Since GPS wasn't allowed during training, we settled on following the trail to the stream, even though it raised our risk of running into another patrol, staying out in the open like that. So with a final look at this strange moon-shaped building, we set off down this trail and get back to where the stream is, which has two parallel roads running on each side of it. So we're moving alongside this very tall grass that is bordering the road, which is bordering the stream, and I see headlights coming near to the bridge. So I alert everyone, I say, vehicle, 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 and we have to force our way into this thick elephant grass. We could barely get a few feet inside of it. The van that's looking for us, that's driving around with its headlights on, speeds past us. It then turns around and comes back a lot slower, almost like it maybe saw something, like it's looking for us in the bushes. Well, it doesn't see us, and it drives away down the road. But then when we exit the elephant grass, I notice some movement out of the corner of my eye. I caught a brief glimpse of someone across the stream walking against the tree line. It looked like a person walking down the road. But the way the moonlight was hitting him, I don't know. It just didn't look like a guy wearing camis. It was weird. I froze, even though I knew this guy probably couldn't see us because we're in the shadows on the other side. And I told my TL, who saw this guy too, who looks like he's just like walking down the road. So I pull out my nods to try to get a good look at him. Now that we're out in the open, I can actually use my NVGs. But as soon as I put the nods up to my eye, this guy's gone. No idea where he went. Just disappears.
Probably a victim of the
I
fleshy
have no idea what to
bacteria,
make of this.
maybe?
And not knowing where this guy went, if he's one of the role players that's going to compromise this, if he sees this, I don't know. So we move along the tree line to the bridge. It's wide open. We got no choice but to just sprint across the road one at a time and then immediately take cover in the tree line on the far side. So one last check for danger. My TL taps me. I nod, and we start crossing one at a time. I sprinted across the bridge and took cover in the trees on the far side. I was then joined by the rest of my team. The team's radio operator then asked to go take a leak. He got permission from the TL. And halfway through, I see headlights coming fast down the road, so I warn the team, and in the dark, and this is kind of funny, I watch my TL tackle the radio operator midstream, mind you, to make sure that he's out of sight. And we're all very tense, worried that this van and their headlights are going to catch us. But the truck just passes by and keeps going, so we relaxed again. And now the RO is moaning about something, basically saying that he thinks he scratched his junk on a sharp stick when he got tackled. I mean, we had to laugh. Once the ATL got a radio check, I reset my azimuth and we moved out, and the rest of the patrol was pretty straightforward. After dodging the van again, driving by, we exfilled and returned to the bivouac for debrief. So afterward, I found the guys that were driving around in the van looking for us, and I told them, hey, you guys drove right by us when we were near the stream, and when we crossed that bridge, and it was around this time. So because we were outside the elephant grass, and I did not see anybody walking along the road on the other side, but after the van left, that's when somebody appeared. So I was like, which one of you guys got out of the van to go take a leak or something? Because I was looking for you with my nods and I didn't see you. And all these guys had no idea what I was talking about. They said that nobody ever got out of the van, and there shouldn't have been anybody else walking around the training area except us. So, who was the guy that we saw? And moreover, who was it that tapped my shoulder if it wasn't my TL? That was one of the creepiest patrols I've ever been on.
All right.
Hey guys, thanks for sticking around for the after action here in the credits. Oh boy, this episode, because I spent several years stationed in Hawaii at Kaneohe Bay, brought up a lot of memories for me. The first was I went through Sergeant's course, which is a professional development course, and it happened to overlap December of 2013. So for December 7th, our Sergeant's course class actually went out to Pearl Harbor. I remember standing on that white structure above the Arizona and just getting a very deep sense of sadness and somberness about it. I don't think you have to witness anything paranormal to really get a sense of eeriness about the location and about the ship itself. And then later, when we went back over to the Kaneohe Bay side, we actually were able to meet some World War II veterans. One was a man named John who fought on the island of Peleliu, and I had actually, in a training event, had been sent out to the island of Peleliu, and I was one of the first Marines to step foot on the island in a military training capacity. And he asked me, he's like, oh, so you were out there today. I hear it's pretty green, huh? Like, how's the island looking? And I said, yeah, it was lots of trees, very hot. I don't envy you having to be there in combat. He's like, all those trees? Yeah, those weren't there when I landed. They had bombed the hell out of the island. It was just sticks. So it was 120 degrees in the shade, and there wasn't no shade. He told me a story about him and his foxhole buddy. He went down to sleep while they were pushing towards the airstrip on the island. And then he woke up at some point in the night and tried to wake up his buddy, and he realized that his buddy had been bayoneted in the chest, presumably by a Japanese soldier, while he was asleep. And he just said, by the grace of God, he didn't see the guy didn't see me in the hole, or else he would have stabbed both of us. And then the other gentleman that was there that we were talking to was a former sergeant major in the Marine Corps, and he had fought on Iwo Jima. They always have a funny way of talking about their combat experience, as awful as it was. But the other guy, I can't remember his name, the sergeant major, he just, apparently he had a real bloodlust, because we asked him, like, what are your thoughts about Iwo Jima? He's like, I miss it. Smell of gunpowder and blood in the morning, nothing like it. He had that kind of attitude about it. Ruben's story on the back end of this episode, I really enjoyed reading it, because for me, he is so descriptive in his recounting of this one patrol. For me, it was like reliving one of my own patrols. I remember walking around Bellows. I remember every single tree, piece of brush, the grass, the flesh-eating bacteria in the stream, the little bridge that they had to cross. I remember all of that because I was a point man like him. And so I had to do the route planning. I had to guide my patrols across all these things. I just never saw anything creepy or had anything weird like that happen to me. And the last thing I will say, there's a picture of me on Google crawling onto the beach at Bellows. The funny thing about that night was we had been kicked out of our boat about 300 to 500 meters offshore, and then we had to fin in and crawl up on the beach and set up a BLS, a beach landing site, for the guys to then bring the boat up to the beach. And it was one of my first nights finning at night, and we had put sandbags in our rucksacks. They weren't going to let us take our actual gear that night because, we had batteries and expensive radio equipment and stuff like that. So we had rubber rifles, and we had our rucksacks, our issued rucksacks, but we put these 50-pound sandbags inside of them. And then we wrapped the sandbags in trash bags to put a little air and waterproofing inside the bags so that they would float. Because that's how you keep your bags from sinking, is you put air inside of it so that it floats. Well, my trash bag didn't hold up. And so we get to the surf, the really rough part before you hit the beach, and we're trying to take our fins off so we can move up onto the beach without our fins on. At that point, me and Logan, the guy that was finning with me, my finning buddy, we had no idea how to actually get up onto the beach with our gear. We had done it without any gear, but now we have these really heavy rucksacks that are now waterlogged. So my thought was, while we're in the surf, just still kind of treading water, let's put our rucksacks on our backs, because we're going to have to low crawl up the beach. You couldn't walk up the beach. We had to low crawl, maintain a low profile, that kind of thing. So I helped Logan put his rucksack on. It's hard to put the straps on when you're being tossed around by the waves. Well, we were dragging our rucksacks using a length of rope. And momentarily, I had let go of my rope to be able to assist him with his rucksack, thinking my ruck is going to float. And it's just like, well, my rucksack did not float, apparently. It was sinking. And when I let go of that rope, my rucksack disappeared. I started panicking. I'm like thrashing around, like looking for it. I don't have any scuba gear or anything. I have my goggles, but I'm like diving into completely dark water. I have no idea where it went. It's gone. And I look at Logan and I'm like, dude, my rucksack's gone. He's like, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, let's just go to the beach. Maybe it'll wash up, that kind of thing. So we crawl up on the beach, we do our thing, we're digging holes, we're setting chem lights, we're making the landing site for the boat to come up. Photographer comes up, he's taking pictures. Well, my lieutenant, who I thought was kind of a dick, walks up to me and he's just basically trying to take the limelight of the camera or something at that point, I don't know. So he's kneeling in front of me, trying to have a conversation with me, and that's when I'm like, okay, I should probably tell him now. And I said, sir, I don't have my rucksack. He's just like, oh, that's okay. Would you leave it in the boat? I said, no, I took it out of the boat, but I don't have it. He's like, what do you mean? I said, it's out there, sir. I lost it in the surf. So anyway, fast forward, someone went and got scuba gear and they were diving for it the next day. We never found that rucksack. So if anybody who has been to the island of Oahu or some other island chain in the Pacific nearby, I don't know how far that thing went. Like, where could a rucksack go? If you ever find a Woodland Marpat Ilby Marine Corps rucksack with a sandbag in it, well, you can keep it at this point. But yeah, that's mine. But anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing, for liking, commenting, sharing the video. As always, a huge thank you to both my Patreon and YouTube channel members. May God be with each and every one of you, no matter what you are dealing with.
That was...
And I will see you in the next episode.
So that was pretty something. A couple of scary, spooky stories taking on Pearl Harbor and such. And let me take a look. I wonder if anybody's ever been like, if anybody has commented that they found the red sack, but mm, nah. Just a couple of other old stories. But anyway, so that was things seen on Pearl Harbor, Hickam Field, and the Night Marchers. So, so that was quite a bit of a video and almost like an hour long. And what did y'all think? And what are your thoughts about just some of the stories told and such? Personally, for me, I do believe that there is some paranormal, especially when you go about with the history and such, and the culture of Hawaii. That he mentioned about the night marchers. That would be the first time I've heard of such a thing. So, anyways, everybody, leave a comment down below on what you think of the video and such, and let me just try. And until next time, everybody, see you soon.